Hello! So, welcome to day 39 of the 1 Year On series, and this episode is called Strong Woman. Now, I don't think anyone can really understand the extent of the damage an abusive relationship has done until they are well and truly out of it. And I think that's why it can take months, years, even decades to heal. And then it's an ongoing process anyway, because until you start to cut the ties, whether they're energetic, psychological, or physical ones, you can't really see what damage has been done. It's easier for me looking back to see what was going on with me at the time, to see where I was making breakthroughs and where I thought I was, but really I was only just scratching the surface. One thing I have learned is that healing happens in layers, and rather than thinking of it as layers that are peeled back, it's more like layers of skin that grow over a wound to eventually form a scar. And in those early days, those scars are all cuts and they are open and they are raw, and it feels like your whole body is wounded. The slightest thing can cause you more pain, and it doesn't matter if it's something the actual abuser says or something you see or hear. It could be a loud bang, a raised voice, a song, a photo, or even just a thought that pops into your head. Everything has the potential to cause you pain, and so each day must be taken slowly and with caution. There is a lot of talk about emotional and rational brains, and 1 year ago today I was definitely spending my time split between both. I had some core beliefs that I knew to be absolutely true. I knew that I needed to take care of myself. I knew that I could overcome anything that life threw at me. I knew that in time the reason for all of this would become apparent. I knew my children needed me to be strong. I knew my family were there to support me. Now, they didn't and never will, fortunately, understand how I was feeling. I knew that I was not the first person to go through this. I knew that taking positive action would help me. I knew that I had to just take each day one at a time. And I knew that Mr. C was not going to give up his relenting pursuit for control over me quickly or easily. And I knew that I would have to find a way to dig deep and fight for my right to be free from him. But my emotional brain was tired and it was injured. I was tired of all the thinking, all the wondering, the processing, all the negativity, all those text messages, all the what ifs and how about this. I was bouncing between my rational and my emotional brain. And at this time, Mr. C had arranged to have cognitive behavioural therapy in order to demonstrate his commitment to seeking help for his behaviours. The 20-week scan for the baby was coming up in a couple of days, and the emotional blackmail Mr. C was so well versed in was definitely affecting my state of mind. There wasn't a memorable conversation or event on this day. There were very few text messages and one phone call about work. There were no rows or threats or accusations. He was playing the victim, sure, but that wasn't why when I was putting together this instalment I remember this day so vividly. What happened on this day 1 year ago was a private and solitary moment, and one that really did mark a turning point. After we had finished our painting for the day, I took a shower and I stared at myself in the mirror. For the first time in a long time, I really looked long and hard into my own eyes. There had been a couple of occasions where I had caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror and wondered what I had become. There had been a couple of occasions where I'd caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror and wondered what on earth I'd become. But I was always quick to avert my gaze and carry on with whatever I was doing. In the final few months before leaving, I'd found myself bursting into tears whilst looking at my reflection. But on this day, I really stared into my own eyes. They were weary and they were filling up in front of me. But I didn't look away. I kept on looking, searching and hoping for answers. I stared into the mirror. I stared into my own eyes for a long time that day, and I told myself that I could do this, that I was doing okay, and that everything would work out in the end, that I hadn't done anything wrong, and that whilst the truth was all pretty muddy right now, it would become clear, and just keep going. I went downstairs and I turned on the laptop and I started to watch the training video for today's module of the course I was participating in. Each day there was an engagement task, and today's was to share my big vision for the future. Now, this is what I wrote. I wrote that I plan to create a life for my children and myself rooted in peace and positivity. I hope to achieve a balanced business life that allows me to enjoy quality time with those I love, provide support, guidance and healing to my face-to-face and virtual clients, affords me the time to carry out my self-care rituals without any mum guilt, travel freely and to become financially secure. And I want a meditation or a yoga studio coaching suite in the garden too. And as I was taking the notes and writing out my vision, my daughter was working on her daily homeschool diary. We'd found a blank notebook with the first letter of her name on the front and thought it would be a nice keepsake for her time in lockdown. The novelty of lockdown obviously hadn't worn off by then. And as she worked on her diary, she came across something written on one of the pages and she asked me what it said. I read it and I couldn't believe what it said. It was in handwriting I didn't recognise and no one knows how it got there. But it doesn't matter because however it did get there, I was meant to read it that day. For me, it was a message from the universe and it read, "A strong woman looks a challenge dead in the eye and gives it a wink." I couldn't quite believe what I was reading and just how relevant it was for me, where I was and how I felt at the time. I was a strong woman. I was the strongest woman I know and I could do this. And it clicked. The challenge I faced had been staring at me in the mirror before I came downstairs. The only thing limiting me was me, and in that moment a fire lit inside me, and since then it has only burned brighter and brighter. And 1 year later, that vision really is scarily close to my reality. Not quite got the garden office yet, but I know that is the icing on one hell of a cake that I've already baked. Thank you once again for listening to this instalment of the 1 Year On series, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye bye.